We are here today, however, to recognize not only the service, but that important protection of what you value most embodied in our beloved Canada. And we're here today to recognize the service, particularly of the black men who have served this country. Have served this country not just in World War II or World War I, but way back when the pesky Southerners, the Americans, had their revolution. And that resulted in a significant number of individuals coming to Canada and have been very important in the development of what we have today.
The acknowledgement of the land is first and foremost for Canadians. The acknowledgement of the peoples who came before the ones who came from Europe. So it is the acknowledgement of the peoples who were the originary peoples, or are the originary peoples of Canada. The acknowledgement of the land is also the acknowledgement of the people with the land. So we are not accustomed yet to see humans and non-humans cooperating and working with each other. We're still centered on human beings engaged in action. So the acknowledgement of the land is also the acknowledgement of Indigenous peoples, First Nations, originary peoples, the relationship they had with their surroundings, with nature, and with their environment. So it is important that we remind ourselves of this important aspect of the acknowledgement.
Good morning. I'm the pastor of the British Methodist Episcopal Church here in town, and I'm very pleased to be taking part today and to have had some involvement in the collection of the memorabilia and the photos and that are downstairs, and I've met with the committee a few times. And I want to take time to bless those who have gone before and those whose relatives have gone before, and the new exhibit, that God will continue to remind people that we are all one. It doesn't matter what color we are. And too many people still, that's why we have Black History Month, because Black history has been left out of so much of our Canadian history. So if you're able, please stand and join while we say a blessing.
And good morning, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure for me to be here. You know, I didn't want to prepare, formal remarks and recount battles and so on. Instead, I just kind of wanted to speak from the heart and talk about, we are so blessed and rich as a community, not in terms of wealth and dollars and tourism and so on, but in the stories that we have and that legacy of those that came before us. And it's quite important. That's why I fully support the work of the Niagara Military Museum. And it's about preserving those stories and sharing those stories. We have a rich culture. I was so blessed to work at the Niagara Parks Commission for 18 years. And I always said the Niagara Parks Commission, that sense of the protection and preservation of our history and our environmental issues was what gave Niagara its soul. And so that's why I'm here and so pleased to be here today. During those 18 years, I had the pleasure of working on several issues with Wilma and Jim Hill. And, in terms of Niagara, it's understanding those stories. And that's why what the Niagara Military Museum is doing today and recounting the stories of our black soldiers and preserving that and sharing that so everyone can see.
So, thank you very much for coming. And I think the word that talks about this exhibit is karma. But we had one extra. And so Kathy went and shanghaied a couple of our elderly members, and they worked and cleaned it out. And then we're kind of thinking, what do we put in there? Well, guess who shows up? Driven here by Cynthia Skinner. That one right there. And Roma Morrison. Okay? So, we've got an empty space. Now what are we going to do with this? And this was late November of last year. So we said, oh, let's do Black History, okay? But because it was such a short time frame, we'll take the last day of the Black History Month and open it, okay?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Wayne.
Okay, that was pretty lame. Let's try that again. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I've always wanted to do that, so because Canada would not exist. Canada would not exist as we know it today if we had lost the conflict known as the War of 1812. And even stretching back to the War of 1812, we can see that the black residents have always answered the call to defend our community and our country that we love so dearly. A lot less known story is the story of Brock's funeral. Because at his funeral, it was an elite and brave unit who was chosen to be honored guard that escorted his body to his final resting place. That honored guard was the Colored Corps. I had a good friend called Pudge Dawson, who when I came this morning, I saw his exhibit. Pudge Dawson was a brother of mine in the Union. He was a UAW member, then a CAW member. He was the first black man that headed up local bargaining for Local 199. And I'm so proud to say today, like other families that are here, and friends that are here, and grandkids that are here, my good friend Dennis is here today to honor his dad. So, thank you.
Your efforts and determination to ensure that the Black military history of Niagara is featured during this year's Black History Month and preserved through this permanent exhibition are indeed admirable and well overdue. Military service by Black Canadians can be traced back prior to Confederation. Many Black Canadians can trace their family roots to Loyalists who emigrated north after the American Revolutionary War. American slaves were offered not only freedom but also land if they agreed to fight on the British side, and thousands seized this opportunity to build a new life in British North America. Many black soldiers, as was already mentioned, saw action in the War of 1812, helping defend Upper Canada against American attacks. The prospect of an American invasion posed a major threat to some of the liberties enjoyed by Black Canadians, leading many black men to join the militia. Many understood that an American victory could lead to re-enslavement. And although prejudiced attitudes prevailed over the years, there were still many young Black Canadians that eagerly served in World War I, World War II, the Korean conflict, and most recently, Afghanistan.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by thanking the numerous individuals who must have been involved in preparing this permanent exhibit. I've only met very few of you, and therefore I'm reluctant to mention names for fear of omitting somebody important. The sheer volume of the work is evident in the quality of the display you have produced. It invokes a sense of pride in me, and it's a sense of pride that I don't think I fully realized until I reviewed the display. About a week ago, I was here with Jim and Kathy reviewing the display. It's phenomenally impressive. When Jim first contacted me about a month ago and asked me to speak at this event, I have to admit I was very hesitant. I'm ashamed to say to you today that I know very little about the history of blacks in the Canadian military. To be honest, I have never given it much thought, and therefore I felt immensely unqualified to speak here today. It's such an auspicious event. Over the past 2 weeks, and as a direct result of being contacted to speak here today, I started to scratch the surface on what the story of blacks is in the Canadian military. And I have to say that I've been humbled by what I've discovered. I've learned that blacks served in the Canadian military since before Canada was a nation. In a country that is 153 years old, blacks were serving for the last 200 years. So you figure that out. be disingenuous of me to stand before you and somehow imagine that these pioneering Black Canadians were always greeted with open arms and treated as full equals by their white brethren. There's no doubt in my mind, in fact, I'm sure there's little doubt in any of our minds here today, that compounded with the normal hardships of military service, those proud Black service members would have suffered what must have been soul-crushing racism. But by their actions, by their willingness to serve, they created a better military and they created a better nation. A system based on these values cannot suffer the dividing force of vile racism. These Black servicemen and women who paved the way before me helped create a military where Blacks could serve their country amongst a community of equals. The hardships and the sacrifices they made can never be fully measured, but they can be honored. My people have served the Canadian military with pride and dignity for more than 200 years, and I believe our entire nation is better because of it. This exhibit pays homage to a proud segment of our joint Canadian experience. It is not hard to imagine that it would be lost to the common knowledge without the extraordinary actions taken by the people here today to commemorate and re-educate the public to the tremendous debt that we all owe. I'm personally honored and I'm undeserving to be a very small part of opening this permanent exhibition, and I thank you.